Okay. So for those of you who are using the Safaria, we are in you'll find us in the fifth section of the treatise on devotion, um, and section 118. It's right there in the chat. And for those of you who have this edition, either in the full size or the cute edition, you will find it in the second volume, page 538, 539, at the bottom of the page. That's where we left off. So I want to just say, as a matter of preface, we're about to end our long exploration of the wiles of the Yetzer Hara, of the evil inclination. But I have to say that, so this is I don't know how many times I've read this book so far. I really don't know how many times, but a lot of times. And I've always thought this part was sort of charming, right? I kind of found it charming. So that was kind of interesting, describing, kind of what goes on in the human mind. And I didn't internalize it very much, but this time I actually took it an entirely different way. It's just me personally. I I started to pay more attention to my own internal dialogue. And I thought, what do my rationalizations sound like? Because I rationalize a lot, just like all human beings. But thought to myself, like, so what do my if I were to voice my rationalizations, what would they sound like? And lo and behold, they sound a lot like this. I mean, a lot of my rationalizations sound a lot like this once I let them. Mostly I don't let them, but I sort of, during my time of Hidbodhut, my kind of quiet time with God, I decided to kind of let my rationalizations speak their mind. And when they speak their mind, they end up sounding a lot like this. Um, so it's it's interesting. It reminds me a little bit. Some of you may have read C.S. Lewis's Screw Tape Letters, and I think that this is trying to accomplish, in some way, in a less, obviously in a much less literary way, what C.S. Lewis was trying to accomplish with the Screw Tape Letters, in a sense, trying to give you a sense of kind of, what the other side, how the other side works, and what it's and how our rationalizations kind of play out inside. But so in any case, I got a lot out of this so far. So now we're coming into the home stretch. We have really resisted this Yetzer Hara. We've been doing a great job so far. Okay, we've been doing a great job so far. So now, if you do not listen to it, but exert and strengthen yourself in your studies, it will shoot at you the arrows of envy of your colleagues. So let's say, it tried to talk you into thinking that, oh, you know so much, you don't need to learn anymore. You don't need to study anymore. You're already such an accomplished genius. You can just relax now, head off to the Bahamas. But you say no. It says, it will shoot arrows of envy at your colleagues. If they attain knowledge that you do not possess, you will resent them and try to find faults in them, belittle them, and denigrate them, as if they had deprived you of your understanding and stolen wisdom that was yours, right? Figure that, as if whatever they have, you deserve it instead of them. And if they attain knowledge you do not possess, they will seem small to you in light of your superior understanding. You'll despise them for their ignorance and flaunt for the common people. Right? You're gonna show everybody what a big genius you are. You'll be so conceited, will glory so in your wisdom that you will claim to know what you do not know. You'll be too proud to learn. Right. So, at the point, my advisor in graduate school, I went to University of Chicago, which was kind of a snooty graduate school, and um, he had students who he referred to as unteachables, right? Because they had come, a lot of them had already had one PhD, right? They already had one PhD. They were accomplished writers. They had articles and whatever else, and they just like they had come because they wanted to get a prestigious PhD from the University of Chicago, and they were in some program like the Committee for Social Thought or something fancy, and but they basically were not there to learn anything. Like they weren't, that wasn't really a part of the program. The program was just they wanted to show everybody how smart they were. So so you can be like that. You're arrogant, and you become you when you do learn, right? When you study, you'll be arrogant and impatient with objections are raised. Increasingly, you'll regard yourself as a sage. You will seek honor by ascribing ignorance to your peers. In this way, you will be deprived of the moral instruction of the wise regard to God and His Torah, right? Because you basically lose it, right? There's no if Torah is making you if your Torah is making you arrogant, right, and prideful, then it's not serving its purpose. The point of Torah is to uh, uh, the point of Torah is is to develop your character, right? It's Torah, it's advice, it's teaching, right? If it's not improving you, what's the point of it? So if it does not succeed in its plan to entice you in regard to knowledge of God and His Torah, it will try to do so in regard to the practice of His service. When you perform an act for the sake of God, the evil inclination will magnify and exalt in your sight, make you arrogant about it, inducing you to think slightingly of your contemporaries, making it easier for you to despise, humiliate, and shame them, while in the eyes of God, they may be better than you. Right? You start, right? You go, you do something, right? You do something, you pray or you study or you do this or you do that, and you think it's so like, it's so amazing, so awesome. Oh, look at me. I am like, I'm the greatest and greatest. But the truth is, he says, it says, the afshar shehem tovim mimcha lifnei Elohim. They may be greater than you in the eyes of God. You don't know how God sees. You have no idea. You have no idea what somebody else's difficulties are. You have no idea what they're overcoming to do what they're doing. You have no idea you have no idea how the creator values what you do versus what somebody else does. So to be arrogant about that, and even worse, to humiliate or shame somebody else, and to say, oh, look, look at me and you, that's right. That's not possible because you don't know. If among your colleagues there's one who is more advanced than you in the service of God, whose deeds are better than yours, who endeavors to draw closer to God more than you do, the evil inclination will try to incite you against that person and will say to you, right? So now you see somebody and then you say, well, this person is a real Eved Hashem. This person is a real servant of God, person who really, you can see they really work hard on themselves. He says, any manifestation of diligence in God's service on the part of someone beside you underscores your own deficiency. Were it not for that individual, you would appear to be to both man and God more righteous than any of your contemporaries. So I read this earlier in the week and I thought, this is the stupidest logic ever. Nobody would ever think this, right? I said, no, but nobody would ever think this. I mean, this is loopy, right? This is really loopy. And then I thought to myself, no, I actually I think I've gone down this alley. I think I've gone down this alley myself and sort of saying, well, you know, I, I do pretty well. And that other person, you know, they clearly are doing better than me, but maybe like there's some fault that I don't see. And I start looking, more closely, looking to see what the faults are so I can feel better about myself. Look and say, maybe how do I know they're really sincere? How do I know this is real? Right? I start to get, because I feel it makes me feel bad about myself. So you search for his defects and anything contemptible in him, lie in wait to discover his failings and keep track of his mistakes, right? and you kind of like keep, watch to see if the person is making mistakes. Say, aha, see, he's not so great after all. It's not so wonderful. Okay, so I don't feel bad about myself. Call attention to them as best as you can. Discredit him in your account. If you can spread slander about him to diminish his reputation among people, do so. That's what the Torah says, right? So if you can make yourself look better at their expense, go ahead and do it. And of course, we see this all the time. If anybody is familiar with uh, this, by the way, is my week of religious people doing horrible things. I don't know why it is, but this week, like, it stands out to me a lot that I keep people keep telling me about religious people who do horrible things. So one of the bad habits of religious people, even scholars, and I think that the Talmud says that the jealousy of scholars is like the bite of serpents, right? That they're constantly bashing each other. Just the other day was the yard site of a famous rabbi, Rabbi Yonatan Eibeshitz, and he had an enemy, Yaakov Emden, and the two of the and one accused the other one of being a follower of the false Messiah, Shabbatai Tzvi, and the police were involved. They had each other arrested. I mean, all sorts of stuff happened. Right? This happens all the time between scholars, and the language sometimes, of just saying, this guy is, you know so criticize my ideas, and he's really just a good for nothing idiot. This is, this kind of language is not so unusual. So how do we answer the Yetzer Hara that's telling us to do this? So he says, answer it like this. He says, how shall I despise one whom God loves and disparage the one whose creator praises? Right? If somebody if somebody is receiving praise, somebody receiving honor, right, from the world, right, from the world, right? Who am I to come along and say, oh, they don't deserve it? Right? Obviously, the creator decided this person deserves whatever honor they have. And for me to come along and say, oh, no, 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 no. So what am I doing? I'm second guessing the creator. I'm telling who should give honor to and who he shouldn't. So if I am too lazy to fulfill God's service as he does, should I also hate he fulfills it? He's doing better than me. He's doing better than me. If a person is working harder than me, why shouldn't I just recognize that and say, okay, that's the way it is. There's a beautiful Rabbi Nachman has a beautiful story. And in this story, it's a story about one of the characters is a shoemaker, and he makes he makes horrible shoes. Okay, he makes terrible shoes. It says that they're like triangles. He makes these triangular shoes, and they're really horrible. Okay, and his wife yells at him and he says, "Why is it that everybody makes more money than you do?" He says, "Everybody makes more money. All the shoemakers make more money than you do." And he was a very hardworking guy. He would sit at his bench, and he would, take a bite of bread, and he would take a bite of bread, and then he would work on the shoe, and but he didn't make very good shoes. He didn't make very good shoes, and therefore he didn't get a lot of money. So his wife came to him and said, "Okay, everybody gets paid a lot more than you do. What's going on?" Yeah, and he says, "Well, you know, their shoes are their shoes, and my shoes are my shoes." And he says, look, I pay such and such amount for the leather and such much amount for the straps and such amount for the soles. And I make a little profit. And he says, my shoes are my shoes. And he takes one of his shoes and he gives it a little kiss. And he goes, see how cute they are? They're so cute. They're like triangles, right? They're really cute. These are my shoes. My shoes are my shoes, and their shoes are their shoes. Right? And he doesn't apologize. And he doesn't apologize. He says, this is what I produce. Is it the best? Am I saying that I'm the best shoemaker in the world? No, I'm not the best shoemaker in the world. But okay, these are mine and those are theirs. So the same thing goes with everything that we do. So I should be able to say this is, if I'm doing the best I can, okay, I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing the best I can. And somebody else does better than I do. Yeah, it's okay. I should give them respect and not be jealous of them. So it
When
says,
it comes to scholarship, what is better and worse?
well, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I guess, I don't know. Uh, depends. At the University of Chicago, better was, how much you could degrade everybody who went before you, right? The extent to which you could prove everybody else wrong, or you could make everybody else seem small, small and insignificant was the way. Now, hopefully in Torah it doesn't work that way. In Torah, it's all about chidushim. It's all about saying something new, right? If you can say something that you think nobody ever heard before, I'm not sure that ever happens. That's okay. Nathan's going to answer this question. Nathan.
Okay,
Nathan.
hi.
Hi.
Yeah, yeah, I really need to hear this, and I am struggling with this. Last summer I was on a summer program where we were given like a test response question, and we had to answer it. And I got very jealous of other people about they're saying it says this thing, but it's not. I put in the hours to look into it, and it's not. And I should have just let it go and like and tried to correct them gently, but I was really passionate about it. And hearing this now, I feel like it's talking directly to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I would have loved to listen this before. I think I took the hard way. I think I was just talking to my boss today about it. Amazingly, and for example, to me, life in general has humbled me down, and in that sense, I've learned to appreciate everybody as they are. In the way you're saying, well, you're doing something good, good for you. I'm doing what I can, and I'm happy with it. So I'm stop looking this kind of thing of imposing myself and getting jealous and all that. So
yeah, I think that is a important form of maturity. Roxanne?
I just wanted to say I'm aware of the fact that not everybody who is at the top is there because they earned their way to the top. There's a saying about that, but I'll be polite. And if you are presenting yourself as a teacher of certain morality, then I think it is incumbent upon you, whoever you are, I'm speaking generally, to live that way. And if you don't, then I think the rest of us have every right, and that isn't jealousy because I really don't care what people have, to call people on it. So I don't know. That's what I think. I think there's a lot of people pretending and teaching a lot of stuff. And when it comes down to it, you yourself said once, you're very aware of the fact that when you teach religion, you're the lesson. That's all I'm going to say.
Right. Right. So I think part of it is being aware of where it's coming from. I think that there's a principled, I think that there's kind of a righteous critique, right? And I would defend the right to make a righteous critique, right? If you see somebody and they're if you're in a profession, for example, and you see somebody and they're really and they're engaged in some kind of I'm trying to think of the word, not malfeasance, but malpractice,
Oh.
right? In whatever it is they're doing, they're engaged in malpractice. Of course, then you'd say malpractice. And certainly in religious studies, religious teaching, there's a lot of malpractice. And I think it's very fair very, very fair to call that out. But you also want to make sure of where it's coming from. Is it coming from, if it's coming from a personal jealousy, then that's dangerous, especially because you're going to attend to different facts if it comes from personal jealousy. You're not gonna be able to really describe the case and to be honest about 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 what the malpractice is, because you're seeing it through the lens of your own jealousy. So,
This is a little bit like Salieri in Amadeus,
right, right,
and it makes him angry that it comes more easily to Mozart.
yes, yes. I had that relationship with a guy. There's a scholar named David Schulman. Uh, he's a scholar in Israel, actually, and he was my Mozart and I was his Salieri. I was pretty good at I was pretty good at what I was doing, but he was amazing, and we kind of look alike, and we kind of look alike and we kind of sound alike, and people often confused us for each other, except that he was much better than me. So I burned with jealousy for many years, but he was a really sweet guy, and he's a remarkable person. Linda,
Oh, I have a question about what happens in a situation where a person is revered as a teacher,
yes,
but his behavior, and it's going to be his public behavior is sordid. You mentioned some of the rabbinical dispute, debates that we've seen over the years, and um, this has been going on for centuries, and I have real problems myself accepting the teachings if the teacher doesn't exemplify them. This relates to what Roxana was saying before. And for example, I can think of one rabbi whose family name begins with B, who was sexually abusing females among his following.
right.
And he was put on trial and sent to prison. And I noticed his following is back with him. How could they? Like, what does that say about the congregation? What does that say about him?
Yeah. Yes. Uh, yes. So
Isn't that the spiritual bypassing
yeah.
in a way?
But I'm totally with you on this. I see. Okay. So my perspective on this is that Torah that's filtered through a person who's genuinely who's abusive. I think that Torah is seriously tainted. Um, and that, it, it can be difficult to decide when that is. I mean, I'll just get on a personal level. I because of my politics, because of my politics, I had a parent, for example, who pulled their child out of my class and said, "This guy's Torah is horrible because he's like some peacenik crazy," right? And you know, yeah, yeah. It actually happened twice. It happened twice. I had two people who pulled their kids out. They both apologized later, but it was very, very weird. But at the same time, and so I'm going to say, well, I don't think I'm a bad guy, but they thought so. But when you get these cases of sexual abuse and things like that, which that Torah, my member of my family was a very big fan of a rabbi who was caught doing horrible things, and he had to decide, like, what do I do now? My whole approach to Torah was created by this person, and this person, turns out to be not at all what they said they were, and um, is now living on the beach in Bali, and and getting a following as a guru. So that just goes to show what happens to people who, there's a very nice article, by the way, years ago, um, uh, in Yoga Journal years ago, they were interviewing yoga teachers and gurus about how they deal with sexuality. And they sort of expected that they were going to say, oh, well, we struggle. And whatever. Well, it turned out that they were all like abusing their students. And and the article turned into something completely different. It's kind of like this expose of all of these people, um, and who seemed to have no consciousness that they were doing something wrong, and they were clearly doing something wrong. So in that case, in that case, I think that it's fair to say that that Torah is tainted, and I think you do have to call it out. You have to say no. But what Nathan's talking about is more common, right? This kind of, a kind of jealousy. Okay.
And
So,
that's something else I don't understand because there's different ways of reframing what we perceive in life. And for me, when I see someone who is more gifted than I am in my field, for example, it's an inspiration. It is amazing to see someone, for example, who has a photographic memory and who is able to recall information instantaneously and synthesize it in novel ways and provide meaning where perhaps meaning was lacking before. Those are wonderful gifts and they're admirable. Shouldn't they be making us um, even more um, appreciative of what the creator has given to us? I don't understand petty
yeah.
jealousy.
Sort of
Yeah, I'm kind of going back to the Salieri, going back to Salieri and Mozart. I mean, yes, it would be good to be able to look at a person like Mozart and say, how wonderful is it that God gave this person these gifts, right? Whereas, his perspective, and I think it's an immature perspective, was see how hard I have to work, how hard I have to work, and here this person of much lesser quality and much lesser effort than me, right, gets this so easily, but yes, I think it's more mature to be able, I think it's more mature, and I think it's more generous to be able to look at the person and say, wow, this is amazing, that a
um
person is able to do that.
I sort of agree with Linda. Like, I don't really understand the logic of being jealous because then that means that I want to take that thing from someone else. Well, why should why should I take that from someone else? I have something that they don't have. I don't know. I just think it's really like little minded to think that way. And I mostly don't understand.
Well, good.
Anyway.
Then you should have no trouble answering the Yetzer Hara. You don't have this Yetzer Hara. Everybody, the good news is that not everybody has every Yetzer Hara. Not everybody has every.
Hurrah. Oh yes,
No, but everybody, no, really, but I think it's important to note that like our inner dialogues are all very different. I mean, different, to use the Yiddish word, people have different shtick. They have every person has very different, a very different voices inside their head that come from their experiences, right? Each of us has different experiences, and a lot of a lot of depends on childhood experience and educational experience, on things that happen to us that are circumstantial that kind of build, how strong is our ego strength? What kind of ego strength do we have? Where are the weakness, the chinks in our sense of self? And all of that plays into this, and those are going to vary person to person based on their experiences. Um, so some of us are prone to jealousy, and without talking about my childhood, I could totally tell you why that is. I mean, I could, we could pretty much pinpoint why that is. Would make perfect sense in my case. Um, but I can see why, other people wouldn't. So okay, so I want to end this section. So there's no way to repay the Creator may be exalted for what I owe him. Rather, it's my duty for love of him to love those who love him. Not, it says, and out of honor for him, to honor those who honor him. So really my attitude to people, to people who are being servants of God, to people who are loving God, people who are working hard, people who are studying, people who are praying, I should love them, right? I should be encouraging them. I should be helping them. I shouldn't be jealous of them, or we're on the same, I should see myself as being we're on the same team, so to speak. So why should I have a competition with them? So as it says, he honors those who revere God. The et yireh Hashem yikabed. Right? We're supposed to honor, right? We're supposed to honor those who honor God. You know what happened to Miriam in the narrative beginning. Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moshe, right? It says that Miriam complained against her brother Moses, that he was seems to be that he was neglecting his wife. That seems to be the complaint. And she was punished. What happened to Korach and his party when they were envious of Moshe and Aaron and drew near to God? Right? He got he and his crowd got buried alive. Different people. I have been told I pronounce it wrong. In Philadelphia, they say buried alive. I think that's buried or buried. I'm not sure. Any case, that and alive. So you want to avoid that. So jealousy was our last. That was the last. That was the Yetzer Hara's last trick. So now we go to prophylactic measures. As for exercising care, so in section 6, as for exercising care in one's thought and guarding it, you should not neglect to watch over your thoughts, reflections, and imaginations, for they alone are responsible in proportion to their corruption or refinement for most of the corruption or refinement in conduct. This is it's interesting, especially because I'm just about, as soon as this is over, I'm going to be talking to an imam. We have a weekly online meeting, and we'll be talking about insides and outsides. So there are really two perspectives in Judaism, and they're not competing. But they're complementary. One is that we recognize that what we think, creates what we do. And that's what he's saying here. He says, to the extent, right, to the extent that that we repair, that we are that we repair and refine our intellect, our thoughts, our rationalizations, to that extent, our behavior is going to reflect that. There's an entirely different kind of behaviorist school within Jewish thought that says you begin on the outside rather than the inside. You change your behavior, right? You change your behavior, and that changes the way that you think. So you might want to think of this as kind of a feedback loop, right? That you change your thought, change your behavior, changes your thought, changes your behavior, change your thought, change your behavior. But he's definitely taking the kind of inside out perspective. And so he quotes scripture. He says, above all that you guard, watch your heart, for from it springs the source of life. That's from Mishlei, for the devisings of man's heart are evil from his youth. For I know the devisings, for Hashem searches all hearts and understands the devising of every thought. It is a thing very close to you in your mouth and your heart that you can do. What does Hashem ask of you? Only that you fear God. So all of these things, he says finally, and this fear, hayira eina ele belev. Harayon mashava. He says this fear, this awe of Hashem, it exists only in your heart, in your imagination, and in your thought. That's where it exists. So he says that this is all internal stuff. So we talked about the Yetzer Hara. So okay, how do we deal with all that? Well, we can keep answering all of our rationalizations, right? That's one way. Or, right, we can attend to that. We can attend to that heart. We can attend to the source of all of that, right? And start to make a tikkun and start to make repair of that, so that when it gets manifested in behavior, what's going to be manifested is going to reflect the refinement inside. And that's all a matter of the heart. That's all a matter of the mind. That's all a matter of the power of Harayon, which probably best translated as something like imagination. Okay.
I'm looking at the Arabic, and I think it's fikra.
Oh, fikra. Oh, that's fitra?
Fikra with a
Fikra.
kaf.
Fikra. Okay, interesting. Okay. It's a word I don't know, but I'll check it out. Idea. Okay. Okay, ideas. So thank you very much. See, it's so good to have people who have no languages here. Okay. So an idea. So it all begins with ideas. So what we have to do, and what we're going to talk about next, is to talk about kind of the examination of the heart, and the kind of rectification of our ideas about the world. So that's where we'll go next time. And thoughts as we go
I'm
forward.
always popping out. Oh, sorry. Go on, anyone. I'm always popping. Uh, oh,
Ha.
but the imagination piece I like, or ideas. I heard someone say that, even war is a failure of imagination, and I really liked that.
Yeah.
And I that landed with me. Also, it just let other thing regarding like graduate school and why do I need to be such and such, where and kind of, and I would say the person that we're in awe of is also possesses a humility, and the person that we want to poke holes in or something, maybe there's a certain arrogance there.
Mhm.
So, and I remember just like having to examine my own self, saying, why do I need to say, if someone takes all the air out of the room, let them take all the air out of the room, let them speak the whole day, and why do I need to get my piece in? If I know what I know, it'll come out somewhere. And so that was a tricky, and it was hard for me to learn. It was self-examination. Anyway, thanks. This was this was good reflection. I liked it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's it's interesting. I mean, that these kind of scholarly settings are pretty good training grounds
Yeah.
for a lot of you know egos are quite awake in those situations in a lot of cases. Now, it'd be best if they weren't. I was going to say, I mean, how much better would it be to study in an atmosphere of actual humility, but you don't always see that. Nathan?
Okay, I realize I haven't made it to every class, and it seems that we might have missed it, or else the citation is wrong. So some people like to talk. I'm sure. I'm not sure what I should refer to our teacher as. I don't know you well enough to be on first name basis, I feel. But anyway.
Okay,
Oh, that's Mr. Weissman.
Mr. Weissman.
Okay. So as
Only Caleb.
perhaps we've done it already, or maybe this citation is wrong, but I've seen it cited outside that Bachet Ibn Bakuda quotes about the sage who talks about the greater jihad and the lesser jihad.
Yes, he does. Yeah, we did that
We
a couple
just did
weeks
it?
ago. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So I was wondering if we were coming up on it now, and I was scrambling on Google, and if we were coming up on it now with this idea of it's all in the imagination, or not all in the imagination, but it starts in the imagination. I was wondering
No,
if
it's
this is where you
actually
were
the
going to say if
beginning
they
of the
said it
last
already.
section. Yeah, the beginning of the
Okay,
last section. Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
did miss it, and I have to review.
Yeah. So in the beginning of the last section, he quotes that hadith, which is really interesting. Um, it's very interesting. He refers to the prophet as a chassid, as a pious person, once. It's an interesting thing. I quoted that the other day. In one of my classes here, and and they just didn't know what to think. I mean, just kind of their faces all went blank. I'm like, what? Any case. Okay. Everybody knows how to find me and track me down. So if you have thoughts during the week, please don't hesitate to tell me. And Bezrat Hashem, I'll see some of you on Monday and some of you next Wednesday and some of you in between. And Sebastian, have a good trip home. Amal, it was nice to see you. And
Yeah.
and Diana, you're quiet, but I know you're there. And good to see Kaylin, who's the only person who's allowed to call me Mr. Weissman. That's what happens. I was
Why not Rabbi Weissman? Hello.
I call him Rav. I mean, he
I,
doesn't react to it.
anybody can call.
Because he's my 11th and 12th grade teacher, and I'm
Right.
36 now.
So, right. So I will always and forever be Mr.
Yeah,
Weissman.
just
I
how
see.
Oh, so the question is the meeting for the imam open? No, but there is a place to watch it. I always post them. So if you look at my page, you'll see I post them every week. So you'll take a look. It's with Dr. Zahir, and I'll post it so you'll be able to. So just watch my Facebook page, and you'll find it. Okay. Okay. Au
Thank
revoir.
you very much.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.